something. I don't know. But yeah, you just bend them.
Nike Air foldables.
Foldables, yes.
No, that's not what they call them.
They're not going to hire us at Nike Marketing.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I find them very convenient when I need to just like run outside and just flip them on.
So I have slides. You have slides?
I do have slides, yeah.
I use my slides for those types of like trips. I got some Hoka slides.
Okay.
Recovery 3 Hoka slides. Oh,
okay,
we're ready. All right.
Today's your origin story, is it not?
Yeah, so it's kind of like you got to interview me.
Yeah, I have so many questions.
You're like,
where do you come from?
Well, early on in my life. I don't know why I talk like that.
Today's is murder mystery.
All the time. It all began on a foggy December. No, it would have been September when I was born.
Your September baby?
September 21st.
My birthday is in 14 days.
No, you have the same birthday as my son.
July 28th?
That's Josh's birthday.
Stop. We've never talked about that? I guess
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I won't forget now.
Little Leo.
Oh, is that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the signs.
I was supposed to be a Cancer. I was supposed to be born on the 4th of July, and then I was 24 days late. It was a miracle.
Do you subscribe to the sign stuff?
Not really. I don't really subscribe to any of that stuff.
I think it's too general, and like people find.
Well, like anything, like you go to see like a medium or something. Of course, you're gonna find something relatable.
This is what I heard. I've heard that the you're doing the work. The person who's there, they're just throwing out numbers, and you're like making connections in your brain. Oh, that's what that means.
I will say, I have had experiences in my life that could suggest that there is spirit.
Oh, I believe that is. Yeah, no, I 100% believe there's a spirit realm.
Yeah, or I've just had a really incredible coincidence happen in my life. Do you think this is like the Jerry Seinfeld like pirate shirt? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that episode.
Yeah, he buys this shirt and he gets like berated for it looking like a pirate shirt. Okay. I think it's the pirate shirt episode.
I'm going to watch it.
And I put it on this morning without looking in the mirror. And I had a Zoom and I got on the Zoom and I was like,
saw it.
I was like,
wow. I'm going to watch that. I love Seinfeld. So many episodes, but I haven't seen that one.
All right, let's get this party started.
Yeah, welcome back to the Ripple Effect. And I'm Ron Waddell, your host, with my esteemed co-host.
I'm Marybeth Campbell.
And we're continuing the conversation from our last episode about our origin story.
Yeah, so we're talking about your origin story today.
How I got into this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I went into some family lineage.
Yeah, you did.
Talked about my grandmother stealing away on a train in the middle of the night. Am I doing that thing again?
So this is, we just get it done. Right?
Yeah.
Mario. That's Mario, everybody.
Hi, Mario. Thank God for Mario.
For sure.
You don't have to cut it out. You should be, you're part of the...
Yeah, man, you're in it.
the team.
It's happening.
And this is production.
This is live.
And just remember to keep your lips close to the microphone.
Just enough to touch this film.
Yeah, last week I talked a little bit. You asked me the question of how did I get here?
Yes.
And shared a little bit about my career history, but woven a little bit about like the family DNA, how it contributed to a lot of my decision making of why I'm in the service sector, and did normal digressions as we normally do. But yeah, and I know a little bit about your story. Your story's been a little public too. You've done some interviews, and you're Googleable.
I know, that's a wild thing.
You're Googleable. Yes.
My sons do it at school and show their friends.
Do you have a Google alert on your name?
No, what is that?
You can set a Google alert to any topic or name or whatever, but I do it just to make sure, like when I do get interviewed in a news article, I try very hard not to say anything stupid, but I always want to make sure it's like accurately portrayed. So I have a Google alert.
I have to look into that.
So with my name, and there's another person in the world. Oh my gosh. Name is Marybeth Campbell. She's an attorney. Shout out MB.
And you went to law school. It could have been two.
I know.
Maybe it's like a parallel universe. Weird.
Obviously persisted and was not distracted by other things in her life. But that was part of my story too, is like embracing of failure.
Yeah.
And as leaders being that way. So tell us a little bit about.
Yeah.
where you come from.
I mean, your backdrop about the family really stuck out to me too, because that had me thinking about like the kind of people, person you are and how you do the work, but because that has informed me as well. Primarily, so I'm from New Jersey, small town called Swedesboro. Shout out Swedesboro, exit 2 on the turnpike.
Is it still exit 2 though, or is it formerly known as old exit 2?
Well, the last time I went down there, it was still exit 2. So
they've changed all the highway signs because that's a good use of dollars.
I know. Don't get me started. We're going to stay focused because that is silly.
Yeah.
Get me confused because now you want to make it 116 instead of 12 for what?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Exactly.
Changing exit
billions
numbers.
of, no, maybe not billions, but millions of dollars that could go into supporting greater admin costs for paying our staff better.
Right?
That's a shout out to Gabe for a conversation we were just having in your living room over there.
Cool.
Anyway.
So, Swedesboro, New Jersey, and man, so many things here. So I think part of growing up in Swedesboro, the very beginning, which was really interesting for me as I look back, was the fact that I was born in Chester, PA, and a lot of my extended family lived in Chester, PA. I have 11 aunts and uncles. And so my mom, they grew up in Chester. Chester is, it used to be a lot of times in like top 10 most dangerous cities in America type stuff. A lot of white flight, industry left. And so my family grew up there. My dad, who was in the military, is one of the few African-American males who was able to take advantage of the GI Bill. And he went and bought a house on the other side of the Delaware River. That story was interesting too. Found out later on, he just came back, told my mom I bought a house.
Is that right? Really?
They weren't even done building them. The foundations were still in.
A generational thing too.
And he came back and was, so I just want to let you know, I bought a house.
Did your mom work at the time? Was she working or was she like, my mom stayed at home?
I don't know. At this time, I'm talking like I was probably 1-2 years old.
I feel like that's such a generational thing of like, I've bought a home for us.
I secured it.
Like, okay.
We're moving. Yeah. Like it was fascinating thing about now. Like, what do you mean? You didn't talk to her about it?
Yeah.
But I bring that up because that was the suburbs.
Okay.
And where I grew up, that was one of the most important things that happened to me was the fact that my dad chose to do that. My dad then, unfortunately, was a victim of the crack epidemic and he went in and out of jail. But the fact that we moved to the suburbs, the foundation of it for me was like you own a home,
right? Yeah,
right. Like that's what you own a home. That's what you do. And so my cousins who were in Chester, like we go over and they were in apartments and these kind of things, right? But I had other aunts and uncles who had I had an uncle who was a chemist, worked for Scott Paper, one of the first African American chemists to work for them. And so his home was up in like northern Pennsylvania, and it was mad nice. So I had all this stuff going on. But my dad left when I was about 3 or 4. And a lot of my caring for other people was rooted in what I learned from my mom.
Where do you have a sister, other siblings?
I have 3 sisters.
3 siblings. Okay.
Yeah, 2 older and 1 younger.
Okay, so you're kind of middle-ish.
And I'm the only boy.
Only boy.
Yeah, so they say I'm spoiled.
Well, I can attest that's true of my brother as well.
I don't.
Shout out Sean, but you know it's true. What's the age difference?
Oh man, you're gonna do this, and my sister's gonna kill me because I don't know.
Don't overage your sisters.
It's so my oldest sister is I think it's like a 12-year difference between my oldest and my second oldest, and then there's like a 7 or 8 year difference between Anne, my second oldest, and me. And then there's a 5-year difference between me and my younger sister, Kelly. Okay. And Kelly was kind of an accident. I
was too. I don't know what's an accident. I mean, whoops, but I don't know.
Well, at that point, my mom and dad weren't, they were separating. And my dad actually, I found out later, was like, so you still want to go through with this? And obviously Kelly's here and she's doing amazing. But when he left, it was how my mom chose to live her life now that I absorbed from. We were very committed to our faith of Christianity and going to church. It was just accepted when I was younger. That's what we're going to do.
Right.
Sunday, Tuesday we got Bible study. Wednesday we have this going on. And so it was, and then like my family was there. So the 11 aunts, like everyone was in there.
Yeah.
And so there was this standard that you had to hold. Like my grandmother was the Sunday school teacher, right? So it was like, hey, Karen, your boy didn't know the answer to so-and-so. How you don't know the answer? And then I'm like, dang, man, like, and it's getting yelled at because I don't know the answer to what verse was this and all that. A lot of pressure.
But you're very good at that now. You cite verses frequently.
I've been doing it for almost.
Yes. And I'm like, I get home and I'm like, what is that?
So 7. But she chose to take care of my dad in ways that were just mind-boggling that I think about now.
Yeah.
So he was wrestling with his addiction, and he had another woman, and he ended up having a child by this other woman while they were still married. And there'd be times like he'd come to the house and he wouldn't be well. He'd be sick. And my mom would let him in.
Take care of him.
Yeah, like you could get a shower, get yourself together.
Yeah.
Here's some food to eat. You can't stay because you're not well. And I remember there were times like he'd come with his daughter, or my half sister Marla, and there'd be times like mom be like, "Look, it's not good for you to be with this child at this time, the condition you're in." Yeah. And like she would call the other woman and be like, "Look, I have your daughter. I'll bring her over to you."
She took Marla with her and brought her into the house and
and be like, "Listen, because she didn't think my dad was in a condition to be transporting." Yeah. And so I'm like, "Yo, that's at the time it was just like what is," but as I think back now, I'm like, that's crazy.
Well, also incredible. Like, I mean, totally open and giving and forgiving and just being,
what she said?
Maternal woman. Yeah.
What she said was, "This is no fault of this child."
Yeah. 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 Just really
perspective of,
Yeah. Do you think about at what point in your life, where am I from? Worcester?
Your life.
At what point in your life professionally have you connected those dots to what you do for a living?
I would say it.
Or has it just been like, there's not even thoughtful about it. It's just like, it is, that's always been that way.
It's shown up in, so those types of things to me are values. Like there was a value of compassion that my mom showed in those spaces. And so growing up in that context and growing up in that space, like it informs a lot of how I do anything. Or try to, right? And so the faith component is what really pushes me to recognize that, one, within the faith of Christianity is that I am not worthy. I'm by Jesus' sacrifice is why I have value, right? Like he saw value in me. And so I'm grateful just to be alive. It's a blessing to be here. And then the larger scope of things is like in the book of Ecclesiastics, he says some wild stuff like King Solomon, who was like the richest man in the world. He said some wild stuff like, I denied myself no pleasure. And in the end, I found out it was like chasing the wind. So like gathering a bunch of stuff, it never had for me, it's cool, but it's not a driving force. Yeah. Being able to relate, impact, see people grow, encourage, inspire, build up, that also is something that my mom was huge in. So like you would go to my mom and be like, so this informs my professional career. Yeah. So you go to mom and like, hey, what does petrichor mean? Look it up, everybody. What does petrichor?
You can experience it in real time today.
It can happen. So what does petrichor mean? And my mom would say, there's a dictionary in the...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Did you have Encyclopedia Britannica growing up?
I had World Book and Britannica.
Oh, you had World Book too?
Yeah, we had both.
That's fancy.
We had both.
I was using Encyclopedia Britannica from 1978 right up until about 1996. I was like, oh, this is no longer factual? Okay.
Yeah. Keeping updated with those now. Like, that's so funny. And so she was always self-sufficient. She'd say stuff like, why I'm not going to let you use my brain when you have one of your own.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And so in some ways it informs, like, I'm empowering my team. Like, look, you can figure this out.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that, because you, in some ways, apply, and this is a law school reference, one of the few minor things I learned, but you kind of employ a Socratic method in conversations. Someone will ask you a question and you'll ask 3 questions back, which, as the person on the receiving end asking the question, is like, can you answer my question?
Yeah.
But that was my mom. I can see where that comes from. But as a leader, right? And we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I've kind of learned not to give the answer. I don't want to give the answer anymore, but the ideal situation is that the answer is the same as you would hope that it would be. Yeah.
So the point, and to just riff on that for a second, the part of why I don't want to give the answer, it also is something that I teach my team in working with our participants, is because if I give you the answer, only 2 things are going to happen, right? 1, if it doesn't work, it's my fault.
Right.
And 2, my research study says that are you familiar with the Zeigarnik effect?
No, I like, every time I leave here, I have to go like read things and Google things. And
so you are familiar with it, but so like the Zeigarnik effect is from a German psychologist, I believe. But it is the fact that your subconscious will continue to work on a problem while your conscious brain isn't. So it's the reason that they say, you're like, oh, what is the name of that song? And you can't think of it. And then like,
it'll pop in your mind.
Like you weren't thinking about it. It's like, boom, because you're, and so the work of letting someone wrestle with the question actually allows them to.
Well, and also critical thinking skills, right?
Valid.
Yeah. And problem solving. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely do that. And so that piece really kind of my mom, but then she died when I was 15. Mm-hmm. And that was a big transition, obviously. I was living in New Jersey at the time. I moved in with my oldest sister, Dawn, and that deteriorated quickly. She had a boyfriend at the time that it just was not a good mix. And one night it got physical, and I was asked to leave. So I stayed in a car, and then we worked like these back channel with my second sister, Anne Marie, who was living in Westboro at the time.
Right.
Westboro, Massachusetts. And so we set it up like I was going to visit for the summer, but behind the scenes, we were making all the school transitions and all that.
You and Anne Marie were doing that?
Anne primarily.
Okay. Yeah. But it wasn't, you weren't setting her up. She was setting everyone else up that you were going to be living with.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. And so then I was like, oh yeah, I'm going up for the summer, went for a week. And then we called Dawn and we're like, hey, he's staying. This is what we're going to do. Okay. So now I was in Westboro, Massachusetts. For those who aren't familiar with Westboro, Massachusetts, you should Google it. It's a very affluent town.
What is Swedesville?
Swedesboro
to Westboro, all the boroughs.
But also remember my experience of Chester, PA. So like a big part of my childhood and a lot of my time was spent in Chester, PA as well. Mm-hmm. And so having that experience, Swedesboro was definite suburbs. I mean, it was wild. Like even in Swedesboro, they had this one program when we were kids that the police officers in town had baseball cards. And if you collected all 12 of the officers, you got
They were on the baseball cards?
They had their stats on the back. This was their community policing, though.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Think about it. It was kind of innovative.
Ours was bicycle safety.
Yep.
And I always got the award.
Oh, of course you did. You were the safest bicycle rider.
No, it was because my father was a police officer.
That's not right.
But also, I'm an excellent driver. And was very good at bike riding. And as an adult though. I cannot ride bikes as an adult. But anyway.
I crashed into a parked car when I was riding the bike one time.
I'm sorry.
Watching the gears change.
So you are in Westboro at this point.
I am in Westboro, and really, really interesting to be in Westboro. I think, so I moved there as a junior. In my junior year, I want to say there was something like, there was a handful of brown folks in the upper class. It wasn't a lot. It's a lot different now, but when I was there, it wasn't. And then going back, there was this pressure of being black in Westboro and needing to perform specifically athletically. Like, I remember distinctly like having this like...
Did you play sports in Westboro?
I did.
Did you want to?
I did want to play sports. Right. But it was also... What I'm saying is like... And it was... I carried this pressure of like, yo...
Gotcha.
Society looks at African-American males as like elite athletes, specifically in basketball and football. This is a predominantly Caucasian team. And so I'm here later on, fast forward, I'll come back to it, talking to my classmates at reunion. They were like, yeah, bro, we thought like we going to go to the States. We're going to champions. When I showed up, kind of fascinating, right?
Yeah. And so many other layers to that.
So many other layers.
Yeah.
So I moved there to Westboro, did pretty well my junior year. My family moved to Grafton for my senior year. I decided that I didn't want to go to Grafton. We worked out a deal where a teacher would drive me to Westboro High School so I could keep going. But then I found out about drugs. I found out about alcohol. And I was stealing some things from my brother-in-law. And then my sister Anne Marie and him, they set me down. I had also done some other stuff. Like my grades weren't good enough to continue running track, but I told them I was working at McDonald's.
Okay.
But I was really running track the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah. I did it for a whole season. And then I went to districts. And so districts were on a Saturday and it was trying to explain to them.
To your sister.
Yeah. That I wasn't supposed to be running, but I was running. And then anyway. So I had lied multiple times is what I'm getting
at.
And I had created a lot of distrust between my sister, my brother-in-law, and myself at that time, who were only about 6 years older than me. I was like 16 or like 22, 23.
Yeah, which is an incredible
trying to figure it out with their own two children at the time. So they said, listen, you got to go. You can't stay here anymore. And I don't like staying somewhere I don't want to be. So I left and I was homeless in Westboro for a couple of days. I remember like the first day I thought a friend of mine, Brad Wagner, I was like, hey, can I stay at your house? And he was like, yeah. I misunderstood. This helps me get clarity now too. He was like, yeah. So I stayed that one night and I was like, so I'll be back later. And they were like, no, bro, like that was just that night, man. Like you're not staying here.
Moving in. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, well, I explained my situation. He was like, yeah, but no, like you're not doing that. So it was a series of like staying in people's hopping around, couch surfing in Westboro for a while. Until a family took me in, and Nancy Davison. Shout out to the Davisons, Nancy and Barry Davison, Jeff Davison. They were on the football team, and I moved into them. I just took my sons to see that house.
Okay.
And it was, for me, I was living couch to couch, and then I ended up staying in this, my friend Diane, her mom like went to Ireland or something, but kept paying the mortgage.
Okay.
And so it was a house in Westboro with... Yeah.
It's incredible. That happens a lot, I think, more than more than people would think.
I think, right? Yeah. But it was crazy to me. So her brother, me, and this other girl, Kelly, were just living in this house.
Wow.
And we go to work, we do whatever we want. And so Nancy showed me the house. I was really prideful at the time. First, I don't want to come stay with you, blah, 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 blah. But then when I went to the house and saw the house, I was like, yo, we could make this work. Like, yo, this what? King size bed? In my room? What? Mind-blowing stuff. Like going from the level of poverty that I was in with a single mom and 4 children on welfare and trying to make ends meet, almost losing our house a number of times, to being in this house, Marybeth, where I remember at one point, they were like, oh, we're going to go grocery shopping. Like, what do you want? And I put like 3 things. They were like, nah. Like, this is your cabinet. That's Jeff's cabinet. And that's Heather's cabinet. There are other children. So like, what do you want? Like, we'll fill it up. That's yours. Kind of like, you know.
What level of like overwhelmingness is that? Or is it? What is that what's the emotion?
At the time, I felt a little bit entitled. Because it was like my life had been crap, so I deserved this. But when you're living in that space, there's always a sense of I don't belong.
Okay.
And it created this dichotomy in me of like, what do I need to be for them to like me?
How's that? What is that? Fast forward 20 years.
I wrestle with an approval addiction.
Yeah.
Still. So I have to make decisions internally before people even know about it. Will I say yes to this or will I say no to that? But in my head, a lot of times I'm wrestling with, will that cause that person not to like me?
Mm-hmm.
How will that look? And I have to be able to work through that to get to a point to look practically at it sometimes.
I think I've experienced that with you without just maybe sort of osmosis a little bit, but I've also seen you work through that also.
Yeah.
And in growth in your role as the leader here at LL, just probably forced into a little bit, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Because that fear is like the big thing, right? That's the driver.
Yeah.
Of all the emotions.
Yeah.
That core part of your brain is fear. And you're the pseudo neuroscientist, not me. But in having to go home and read things that you reference, I'm also learning. But that I think that's true of me too. I think mine manifests a little bit differently. Sometimes I have like inappropriate humor, probably as a deflection. But mine manifests sometimes in just being really deferential.
Sure.
And trusting. Yours I've seen manifest, but also evolve as because you're responsible for a whole bunch of other people now too.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that point of being responsible for other people is what drives it too. It's not just what I feel in the moment or what may be like, what is the best overall outcome for the organization? And what does that look like? Sometimes that even rises up for me when I have to like talk to funders still. Like it's a weird thing for me. That the poverty that I was in and the idea that I'm in this place of like, oh, I need your money because I'm poor. Like I wrestle with that sometimes. And have to just detach this experience from past experiences.
But that's part of like the roles that we're in, or the role of anyone that's even managing anyone, never mind a whole organization, is like, it's hard to detach those things because instinctually that's where the emotion's coming from that experience.
It's a good point.
And it's not just about you or I or that, but it has reverberates through so many other people, that decision.
But I think to a conversation, part of the conversation earlier, the critical thinking and that question that I try to ask myself and try to tell my team is, why am I thinking what I'm thinking?
Yeah. But it's so like, that is, I find that's just like an interesting part of learning to be a leader too, is that in opening the door a little bit to let your team know who you are, right? Which is a hard thing to do for trust and all of that. But it's like, you need to know these things because this is going to help us move forward.
Yeah.
And there's this fine line of like, how much do you share? How much do you open?
Absolutely.
But also
sometimes I share too much, I think.
I definitely do.
I've been told.
I definitely do, because I'm also, I think, right, if we're in new-ish roles for ourselves, like you've like learned to be like, oh no, that doesn't, I've been better at editing myself, I think, but also it's like building rapport is like, this is who I am.
Right.
And sharing. And I think that's we're raised to like go to work, and work is 9 to 5 or whatever it is. And like you go to work and this is the thing you do, and then you go home and you have your life. But like, that's not the way it is actually, if you're, especially if you're in your avocation,
good word.
And it's hard to create distinctions in those and build teams that trust each other. So there's the path and pathology of that has to include some level of limited oversharing.
I've always, even with my children, like I probably overshare, and maybe more than what some people would do. For instance, this past weekend, they have the lemonade stand, the Lemonade Bros.
Yeah, right down the street from me. I didn't see that post until it was too late. I was out. I was shopping for shoes.
You've been shopping for lemonade.
I know.
You could have got the shoes and walked to the lemonade stand.
I know. It's literally was on my street. Yeah. That's a great, just a quick digression. That with the young entrepreneurs, because my sister's neighbor actually makes his own candles or her own candles. And I think her brother makes soap. They were there too.
Oh yeah. We saw them.
But I just think it's such a fun, not just fun, but like a really helpful tool for young people to like
get out,
be out there and have that venue and that platform. I think that's so neat. Anyway.
No, I'm talking about just like sharing or pushing people maybe even more. I left them there because they were like, well, I'm hungry. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go to Wendy's and get you some burgers. Are you guys good? And they're like, yeah, we'll be fine. Like, so you're going to stay here? They're 10 and 9. They stayed at the fair by themselves. Josh texted me while I was gone. Hey, we got 3 more followers. I had 4 more sales and I spent some money on this thing. So like I've
self-sufficiency,
but it's because I've like pushed them into places probably more than they should. Like when they were 4 and 5, if you're at McDonald's and you want to order, what do you better talk. You can talk, right? Tell them what you want, man. I don't need to tell you.
Yeah.
So always like pushing the boundary. I think that's part of my gift to the organization too. Is pushing more.
You're a boundary pusher.
I'm a habitual line stepper.
Yes. Yeah. And that has, in our partnership, has been prevalent, but in a way that actually has helped me think through. Because I've been frustrated with you. We've agreed not to text each other about work things because cannot convey tone via text.
What's she saying?
So FaceTime usually is the mechanism, but that. And not just you, but I've had a lot of, there are people who push me and I get so aggravated. You and I have gotten so aggravated with each other, but it's also because like, I know in many times it's true, right? So it's like, we've talked about this is like, when someone points out a flaw or you point out a flaw of someone else, usually it's a flaw that you have yourself too.
Yeah, you see it first.
Or, somebody points out something and it makes you mad because it's true. That's part of, that's like the back and forth and the give and take a little bit of like, okay, let's self-reflection. Why am I so aggravated by this?
Yeah.
And it's not always like 100% like, absolute, but
yeah. And definitely have grown into that. I'm thinking also of like so in Westboro, I came through that. I was able to finish high school, went to college, Bridgewater State. And then I was at Bridgewater State for a year and a half. And then I was on my own. There was no supervision, which was at the time I thought it was great, but it's not great.
And the bill came.
Yeah. And it's not great to be 18 with no
structure.
No parameters.
Yeah.
Like it sounds at the time like this is phenomenal. I'll do whatever I want.
I bet your roommate thought you were really cool.
Oh man. Then the bill came. I owed $8,000. I didn't have $8,000. And so for the next 2 years I squatted illegally in the dorms. Friends helped. I worked off campus. I always worked at a food place because that way you could eat.
Right. Yeah.
So it was always strategic in that way.
Survival.
And and I would trade my food. Like, so I worked at KFC. I'd make some extra. We got extra tenders. I'd bring them back. I'd trade those for weed or whatever when I got back. Whatever I needed.
Hand in hand.
Absolutely. Whatever we need, man. What you need, bro? I got chicken. Bucket. What you want, bro? Burgers. I got it all. But it became increasingly depressing to see other people matriculating and like, you're just like coasting, and so I got really, really depressed, attempted suicide.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. That was the first time and ended up in Brockton Hospital. I didn't know it at the time. I know now because of the work I'm in. So they filed a 51A on me.
Okay.
Because I went to Brockton Hospital and then I went to try to leave and they were like, no, you can't. No.
Yeah.
No. They're like, no. So you know what I did? I called my friend Chris and I left.
You left.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say you left. Yeah.
I'm not staying here.
Yeah.
And I went back to campus and then I got arrested for trespassing.
They knew you were coming back?
So when I came back in, I went through the dorm.
Okay.
And the front desk person reported. So, it's just like a student, but they probably told him like, hey, if this dude comes back, he can't be here. So I got flagged and I got arrested. And
then so I mean we're also getting to career part too, but did anyone follow? What was the follow up? Did anyone say like, we know you're having a hard time, we know this, or was everyone like, see you later?
There was none of that.
None of that.
There was none of that, even from when I was in high school. I remember in high school when I was that point, I was homeless in Westboro. At one point, what I would do, there's not a lot to do in Westboro besides go to school during the day. And so that's where I'd go, right?
Yeah.
And there were some teachers that were cool, let me hang in their class. And they found out I was doing that when I was really enrolled in Grafton High School. And I remember sitting with the principal in her office after getting called down for being there one time. And they told me if I came back, I would be arrested. I explained to them, like, I didn't have anywhere to stay. And they were like, that's not our issue. You will be arrested if you come back on campus.
That's what, and when we have been on calls with our funders, our mutual funder, and arguing about what we can and can't spend money on and like root cause issues. And like, can we just be there for them? Can we just be there? So
that piece, as you get into the work part, that starts to inform my passion for helping the participants that we particularly help, and people in general, but particularly those participants, because I felt at that time very dismissed, and who I was, you bury the hurt of that, and present this image of indestructiveness. At least I did in the moment to survive.
You thought that was the image you were projecting.
Yes, this is what I need to put forward right now. You can't hurt me. Yeah. But inside, I'm like, yo, they don't even want me. Like, what, this was before the Davidsons took me in, but that was definitely something. And so then through college, no, none of that was going on. I remember I went to the registrar. I was like, this is the deal. And then I had no other guardian or parental figure to call to get guidance on it. Right. Like to say, hey, this is what happened. What do I do with this? So I was really on my own. I squatted there, really spiraled downhill with a lot of drugs. Cocaine scared me. When I started using cocaine. That all the other ones, mushrooms, drank Robitussin until I hallucinated, all these different things. But the cocaine was the one that just like, it was a weird, I couldn't control that one. Yeah. The urges that came with it, even now, just freaks me out thinking about it. And so I knew I needed to do something different. I then enrolled, I went to the Navy.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. I went to the Navy, and which is
an incredibly self-directed decision to go into that innately knowing the structure is required.
I need discipline. Yeah. This is what I need right now is some discipline. Where I can get it is here. And there was also this compulsion because my younger sister, who I had left in New Jersey at the time, had her first son, Cameron. And she was like 14. Okay. And so I did not want her to stay in that situation. There was some guilt and regret of me being able to get out and her staying there. Okay. And part of my goal also was, if I get this, then I can become her guardian and bring her into this space and help her son and all that kind of stuff. I was in the Navy for 8 weeks.
I did not know that. I knew you had.
Entry level separation.
That. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, they kicked me out after like total of 8 weeks. Really, I was only in like basic because you do basic training and then you go to the Navy recruiting side in Chicago. Talk about being on your own and self-directed. First time I ever flew, I flew to Chicago dolo, and I was terrified because I didn't know planes. I'd never turbulence? Been. No, I had no idea, Marybeth. I'm like,
oh my gosh, you should watch the flight app, Flight Radar. And you watch I was watching it all last night because of the storms. And
how much it?
Oh my gosh.
Goes up and down, 40 feet, 30 feet.
More than that. It's incredible.
Wow. Yeah. So I thought we was going to die like multiple times. And I had no one to talk to. I'm like praying to myself. So I was there. I got separated because of a eye condition called Fuchs dystrophy. Okay. This was June of 2001. Okay. And they kicked me out, medically separated, not kicked out. And I was so distraught because it was a matter of the Navy don't even want you, bro. Like, you're no good. And so I came back to Massachusetts, stayed with my sister. for about 3 weeks. They like, you got 3 weeks to figure out what you're going to do. And I enrolled in Job Corps.
Oh, you're in Job Corps.
Yeah,
Okay.
I graduated from Job Corps.
Okay.
Huge advocate for that program.
In Grafton, the Grafton one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Came through there and then got a job as a receptionist for a national restoration company and kind of learned that business and then grew into like a project manager managing this business.
Yeah.
And so that gave me a ton of experience at like 23 of like supervising, coordinating, and that expanded my capacity as I grew in that industry. I got headhunted by ARS Services, another organization that did this type of work, disaster restoration insurance work. And I was good at it because I was very personable. I hated the detail of it, which I still hate the detail of work. But what it did, Marybeth, was you would manage a claim, a property claim, and on that property claim were probably 5 to 6 stakeholders that you had to keep happy.
Yeah. So
you have the insurance agent, the insurance adjuster, you have the homeowner, you have your own internal supervisor, and then your construction team or whoever. And you're managing anywhere from 25 to 40 of these at any given time. And so the capacity of what you're operating, like I didn't even think about it at the time because you're just in it, you're doing it. Very stressful. That when I left that job and I got a job at the library, the pace was...
So you did work at a library.
I did.
Remember the first episode you went...
My librarian voice? That's right, everybody.
I knew it was in you.
Please gather around. Tell your story tonight. That's kind of like an accent there too. Though.
There's something there, yeah.
I drove the bookmobile and that...
Oh, yeah. Okay, I have heard you talking about that.
I wanted to give back to the community and I was like, this is great. I can be on the bookmobile. That gave me huge insight into the Worcester public school system because the bookmobile went to all 34 elementary schools. And so to be able to see straight up disparity between the schools we was going to was like, already, right? You took first, second grade, your experience is entirely different if you went to Canterbury school.
Yeah.
You know, right? And I remember being at some schools and being like, all right, we have extra, they would ask, do you have any more applications? We'd be like, we have one, can you make a copy? Some would be like, yeah. Other schools we go to be like, no, we don't have any extra copy. You got to pay for those out of pocket. Like what is going on here? And so that just gave me a whole new like perspective on how that system worked. And then those funneling into the 4 middle schools and then on to the high school. By this time, I then got connected up with Straight Ahead Ministries.
Okay.
My friend Angel Guzman had an opening as an outreach worker. And I had been doing some volunteer work through after school programs. And this opportunity opened up as well for a full-time position as an outreach worker with Straight Ahead to work with gang-involved youth. And so I started doing that. I was completely terrified. I remember telling Angel, I don't think I can do this. I was like, bro, I don't know if I can. He was like, nah, you absolutely can. I'm not from the city. So it was like, I don't know how I'm going to engage with these guys. In that summer, 2015, that's what I did. I was doing outreach. I was going to the community. I was on the block, on the street. I was under SSYI. So I had a list of names. I was going to houses, knocking on doors, like, bro, you just pulling up because the way that program is designed, a lot of the young men don't know they're on it. And so you're at their door trying to explain.
Yeah, we're not handing t-shirts out.
Hey, how are you? They said you needed help. So I'm that guy. How you know me. So
exactly. Yeah.
Like working through that. Then at Straight Ahead, there were some transitions. I was elevated to the site director. And then I was asked to make a decision of whether they were going to keep the SSY program at the time. They were like, the person who's currently the director of it here doesn't want to do it anymore. If you don't want to take it, then we're going to drop it.
Wow.
And there were like 4 other people that were on the grant.
Yeah.
So
Huge
I took
impact.
it.
Yeah.
I took it. I had no idea what I was doing.
Well, we talked about that last week. It's just fake it till you make it.
Figuring it out and knowing the failure. And I think, it's cliche, but the willingness to show up.
Well, yeah, that's always like the cliche, as you say, is like, showing up's half the battle. It's like it actually.
It really, like, I'll.
Yeah.
I talk about this also with my team, and for myself, I try, not perfect, but it's a matter of what you're committed to. Right.
Yeah.
Because if I'm committed to it, it doesn't matter how, like I'm going to figure it out. If I'm committed to leading this.
Right. Well, that's what it drives, when we kind of talked about this a little bit, what drives me crazy in terms of this idea of being a nonprofit and sort of like getting patted on the back sometimes of like, oh, nonprofit, it's nothing like the private sector. But it's more, because, and I'm not, I've only worked in public, but aside from my stint at UPS, unloading.
And you liked that job.
I mean, I cried like every day, but they did call me Bruiser because I was very bruised. And they also called me Purple Rain because I wore purple shirts.
Rain,
exactly. Yes.
Purple Rain.
I was, it was intense. But I like when you, in the nonprofit sector, you have to have all the business acumen skills, and not to suggest anyone that works in the private sector doesn't have mission or purpose to do whatever it is they're doing, but you have to have everyone on your team, for the most part, have to have that commitment and passion because of it's uphill constantly.
Well said.
It's constantly uphill.
Well said. In so many different ways.
And you have to, and if maybe an unfair comparison, but I feel like you have to be constantly motivating or modeling that commitment in some way, because if you're not constantly hitting that it's not like it's going to take care of itself.
The way you describe that in my head, I visualize it as like the ability to, like a boat in a wake behind it. Like, so you're projecting that confidence, that motivation, and that provides a wake for people to come behind and be encouraged, because and you're taking those first hits though, right? Yeah. Like whatever the choppy waves are in the beginning, like you're kind of taking those as the leader and then creating this wake for folks. What I've learned in that though, also, which actually the way you operate has taught me a lot, is I got to take more breaks.
Now, can we qualify that?
No, but seriously, all joking aside, like recognizing when...
I'm not like... yes.
I'm teasing Marybeth.
I get what you're saying. Yes, you're right. You're right. Yes.
Her spouse allows her to
Yes, we have the benefit of being able to access airlines through my wife's job.
And I'm a little bit jealous.
Yes, but...
I'm a little bit bitter about it.
But I think like modeling good, like social, emotional, mental health is good for your team to see also.
No doubt.
But also like working your butt off too, right? So and being present. When you're there, you better be present and getting stuff done, and empowering and motivating teams to do that. But that's why you have to build good teams, because you can't do everything.
No.
And I know you're in of the size organization.
I'm at that point.
Yeah. And that is somewhat the nature of it. I do benefit from long weekend trips.
But just being able to take appropriate breaks because you are leading and to stay with the boat analogy, you're kind of taking the front of the waves and all those things that are coming on. And sometimes you just need to take a pause so that you can be refreshed, or find ways that you're refreshed and taking care of yourself so you can continue to do that.
And sometimes when I do it, it's just like I tend to be overly self-aware that sometimes can bleed into self-deprecation in this constant questioning. So I have to be like, wait a minute, time out a second, reset, let's revisit the goals. And usually what I find happens, one, you have a conversation with someone on your team or people on your team that might be experiencing something similar, or they're in a really good place at that very moment. You're having the conversation and validating, like, we're going in the right direction. Like I'm with you. That feels right and good. But then also just going back to what I always say, my other self, and like, what did my other self do 6 months ago? And I go back, oh no, that's okay. Yeah. I still actually think that's the right thing, that I believe that.
Yeah.
I just need to, I got to reset a little bit.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a constant juggle between those two.
Yeah. And just because you're in a role like a CEO, ED, whatever it is, or even just
doesn't mean you don't have those
No, we're all human, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not. Like perfection is not the quest.
I am not. I
Not
have now
unachievable
into
Yeah.
a robot.
Yeah, or just like it's just unrealistic, and that's why I think like sharing a little bit about yourself is helpful, and building some trust that way. Yeah.
I think that vulnerability, we talked about
Yeah.
that previously too, is a big part of building the trust.
Yeah.
So all those things really drive my commitment, my experience, my mom, my personal experience of what I've gone through allows me to step into that role of what, in some ways, but what is that young person thinking? Haven't been that young person in a lot of ways, and been, from the time I was very young, recipients of system benefits, whether it be welfare, whether it be, and then kind of coming through this and learning from myself, seeing the disparity between, that was the other thing when I moved to Worcester, was like Westboro, Worcester, remember, my rearing was done in suburban areas. Yeah. I'm an urbanite later in life. And so literally when I first came to Worcester, like walking downtown and doing all that, like I was like, yo, I'm nervous. Like, I don't know. Well, this dude's is crazy. I don't know what's going on, And so it took me a while to get acclimated. But one of the things that stuck out was like, how is Westboro 20 minutes away? And I was learning writing HTML code in 1999 to now I'm here and they're just like, we're excited to add a computer lab to this. I'm like, wait, whoa. And so even more like the disparity of people are experiencing. And I've considered myself blessed to be able to have those experiences of what I went through, and was like, yo, how do I give this back? Like, how do I support in some way? When the opportunity at Straight Ahead as an outreach director opened, as the outreach worker opened up, that was really tangible in my face way to do it. And then I grew in that way to the director, began to learn what I tell folks now. I say, besides in growing your nonprofit, besides raising money, what is the most difficult thing? And unequivocally for me is the politics of it. Yeah,
someone asked me that exact question today.
I didn't,
that was
like coming
answer.
into it, I was naive and I didn't think, I had this, everyone's beneficent and just, and everything is altruistic and but the reality is, like you said, you're running a business.
Right.
And if there's money to be had and there's services to be given and provided, and how those levers and gears work within, it disrupts current systems. Yeah. And so working through that, the folks that you need to know, all those kind of things, being able to build your network to be able to support the relationship that we've developed and others, Ken Bates, throughout. And then I've just been really, really blessed with an amazing team of folks that are, like you said, have that commitment to the work. Blessed to have friends like you that are willing to stay in it and keep talking. Yeah. It's like, this dude may be nuts. And supremely blessed to now sit on some of the boards and stuff that I sit on. And to me, it's about opening doors for other folks. It's cool to be there, but if I'm not bringing other people through and I'm not sharing what I'm learning with other folks as I navigate through it, then what am I really doing here? Yeah. For me, it's about that at this point too. And so the fact that I have that access, it's like, if you with me, bro. So
together.
Yeah. If you with me, bro. Yeah. You with me.
How much time do you, I thought a little bit about this recently, because I feel like I've just been, the balance of my temperament lately has been tilted towards rant.
Oh, is that right?
A little bit. Just trying to run interference for my staff a little bit on issues that are frustrating around some of those like regulatory compliance things. How much, and I'm in this space right now where I have this sense of feeling, and I'm trying to fight this and like work my way through it, of feeling the sense of resentment and responsibility, like very resentful that generations before me have not addressed a lot of issues like working really hard with my team and consultants to like move an arc of WCAC as an anti-poverty agency from focusing on DE&I to becoming an anti-racist organization.
Okay.
As an example.
Yeah.
I mean, I could give
we saw some of it. Yeah.
a million more examples, but the idea that, but also very like, it is in my hands. I'm responsible for it. I need to embrace this, work on it, work on myself, do this work, encourage, empower. Let's get this done. But I find myself just being like that resentment and the rant and the anger of like fighting the tide is at today higher proportionally than what I would like it to be. And I don't want that to cloud ultimately like how we move forward. I want the trajectory to be motivational and progressive in the sense of moving forward, but not, I'm starting to feel a little bit like, and like that's what's motivating me. And that's not really what I want my motivator to be. You know what I'm saying?
What would you want your motivator to be?
I want my motivator to be like actually demonstrating that we are actually making a difference towards changing systems. So the politics of things, the policy of things, in that we're not just working as an aftermarket solution, but that we are changing the business model.
I was looking for a quote from Frederick Douglass. He's my favorite American. It's not the full one, but this is what he says. He says, if there's no struggle, there's no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground.
Yes.
And so I understand what you're saying about... I
think we need a little bit of that.
Well, not wanting the resentment to be the motivator, but it's also comes kind of full circle to this approval addiction thing for me sometimes, is if you're going to change things, you're going to agitate. Yes. Right? Yeah. If things are going to change, it's going to disrupt. Yeah. And so I try to find, I don't know if this answers your question fully, but for me, I try to find solace in the fact that it's going to be disruptive. Like the pushback and everything that's going to come should be expected. Yeah. It's no different than when I try to exercise. Right?
Is that what happens when you exercise? Resistance training?
I have a mindset and a motivation to work out every morning. And then some mornings there's pushback. Yeah. Right? Even from me. Because you're trying to change something that I'm comfortable with. Right. And so whenever
moving out of our comfort zone,
out of your comfort zone. And so especially if I'm moving at a pace that is disruptive to the comfort zone, it's going to agitate, and I have to then recognize and proactively plan for the agitation, not be surprised by it. Yeah. Right. Like this is when I do this is what's going to come back. So when that comes back, how am I going to handle that? Yeah. So I try to think through it.
Yeah. Think through the next steps.
Try to think because that's what's going to happen. Yeah. I already know that I'm, sometimes I don't, sometimes I miss it. But if I know that I'm coming to try to do something like what you're doing, I'm looking to shift us to an anti-racist, amongst other things, in which, how old is the organization?
57 years.
So 57 years of an organization and a culture that has gone one way is now like, hey, let's adjust our sails and go this way. And so there's resistance. I don't want to do that.
I think resistance is a prerequisite to success. I think is where my mindset is like, I want to be able to resist, move. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. And make progress. And I don't want to, I would think you think the same way, like we are fighting these root cause systemic, the effect of this root cause issues, right? So, and it's like 57 years, have we moved the needle? And I don't want to be like, oh, like we tried, I can't do it. I never want to be that person ever. And I want to be I think I want our organization to be the fresh face of just keep trying. Yeah. And I just find myself sometimes all the skills of my story last week, your story this week, all the things that we bring to bear to the table. I'm like, what more do we need? Like, what else? Where do we need to move this in a way that I'm going to move from resentment to progress?
Resentment to progress.
I don't know if resentment's the right word, but yeah.
To be discussed on the next episode.
Oh, we are. God, we're flying by.
Yeah.
Look at us, chit chatties.
So thanks for joining us. It is always a pleasure to be with you guys. Like, subscribe, follow all our links on YouTube.
Yeah, we're on YouTube.
Yeah, we're like out there. Is anything happening, WCC? Anything big that folks should be plugged into?
We're just in move mode right now in terms of, we got YouthWorks active. I do need to follow up and get the right date for the job fair. We're going to start our resiliency center work is starting to get a little more external and thinking about community clinics and partnerships.
We've leveraged that already.
Yeah. Getting the van out there.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys used the van this week, which is good.
We did. We have it out. Yeah. We have our van too now.
Yeah. I think it's still in our lot. No?
Okay. It is. I got to move it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any more cookouts? You guys doing any more of that?
They're going to need more.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
And your pants are dry.
They're getting there. Yay. Torrential downpour.
All right, everyone. We'll join you next time on The Ripple Effect. Thank you. And
Thank you.
We're out.
You're listening to The Ripple Effect, a nonprofit imperative with Waddell and Marybeth Campbell. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you on the next one.